Welcome to episode 10 of Driver's Tooth Blog Radio. I'm your non-grouchy host, Dave Firestone. I want to apologize for last week's podcast. I had quite a few things go wrong that were out of my control on Monday, and I record on Mondays, so I didn't really want to do a podcast, but I didn't really want to leave an empty week either. So I'm going to, maybe in the next few weeks, I'm going to record some stuff just to have on hand in case something goes wrong. But with that out of the way, let's get to this week. Now, I didn't really want to comment on this, but since there's been a lot of auto racing implications, I kind of have to. The invasion of Ukraine has had quite a few auto racing implications that have come within the last week. So we're going to go in chronological order. And I'm just going to discuss the news and notes. Now, leading up to the invasion, Formula One drivers Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen, amongst other drivers, were calling for the cancellation of the Russian Grand Prix. Obviously, Russia takes a lot of pride in the Grand Prix. You know, Vladimir Putin makes his appearance. So this was meant to be a blow to the ego of Putin in Russia. But then on February 24th, the Formula One suspended the contract for the Grand Prix, stating that, quote, it would be impossible to hold it under the current circumstances. Now, it should be noted that the race was scheduled for September, but it's been canceled regardless. So even if through some miracle peace does happen and the Ukraine gets its sovereignty back and all of the damage is undone, there's going to be no Russia Grand Prix. Now, the race itself was canceled on March 1st. So on the 24th, the contract had been suspended. But then the race itself was canceled, probably due to the legal implications that had to go through. The next day, March 2nd, Richard Childress, NASCAR Hall of Fame car owner, offered to donate 1 million rounds of ammunition to the Ukraine Armed Forces. He's the chairman of Ammo Inc., which is a ammunition manufacturer. He calls up his friend Fred Wagenhals and said, "Fred, we have to help these people. They need ammunition." Fred apparently stepped right up, and they're working with a private company to ensure the ammo gets to the Ukraine as soon as possible. Said Childress, quote, "I was listening the other day to President Zelensky saying he didn't want out. He wanted ammunition. So he's making it happen." Now again, a lot of people are just saying, well, he's going to mail a million rounds of ammunition. No, he's on the board of an ammunition company. He knows how to get ammunition from one place to another. And I have a feeling that even if he was just a private citizen, some of the legalities might be bent due to the Ukraine situation. But he knows what he's doing. The next day, in the continuing wake of the Russian invasion, Formula One announced the contract to hold the Grand Prix had been completely terminated. So there's never going to be a Russian Grand Prix again for the foreseeable future. Now, we have to talk about Haas F1 and Nikita Mazepin, or however you say it. Well, he was contracted to compete for Haas F1, and they were scheduled to be sponsored by Uralkali, which is a Russian potash fertilizer and exporter. Prior to testing, Haas removed the sponsor branding and removed the colors of the Russian flag. On March 5th, the team announced it had terminated its title sponsorship and its driver contract with Mazepin immediately, or in immediate effect as they phrase it, again due to the response of the Russian invasion. Now, I don't want to sound sympathetic to Russia, but I am a little sympathetic to Mazepin because he understood what was going on. He was willing to work with the teams, but they just said, you know what, we have to send a message. And he even said on his various social medias And this is his exact wordage. Dear fans and followers, I'm very disappointed to hear that my F1 contract has been terminated. While I understand the difficulties, the ruling F1 plus my ongoing willingness to accept the conditions proposed in order to continue were completely ignored and no process was followed in this unilateral step. To those who have tried to understand, thanks. I have treasured my time in F1 and I genuinely hope we can all be together again in better times, and I will have more to say in the coming days. Well, he hasn't said anything since then, so I'm not sure what to make of that. I do feel bad for him because I think he does genuinely not support the invasion, because there's a lot of backlash both internally and externally about Russia, and it should be noted that he's also the son of an oligarch, or whatever you pronounce it, and he's pretty much there because his father's a billionaire, and I don't think he's a pay driver per se, but he's certainly in radar range. Now, do I think he should have been fired because of that? Yeah, I mean, let's be honest here. Haas F1 is not exactly a top-shelf team. And with their luck with sponsors over the last few years, between Rich Energy and this thing, I'm wondering if Haas F1 is going to continue on in the foreseeable future if they can't keep a stable sponsorship like this. Okay, I'm going to take a break. My throat is sore. I'm kind of depressed. And then we're going to go on to some analysis of driver suit logos and logo placement. So let's get to that. So once again, I'm not going to discuss current events on this channel unless it has racing implications, and the events of this last week prove that there's more to this story that's coming. So I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this again soon, but until then, no more current events. Now, before all the unpleasantness over the last few weeks, I was going to talk about how the logo position currently seen on fire suits came to be. And we're going to talk about that right now. Now, as I said last time, between the 1980s and the 1990s, thanks to the rise of cable TV and the increase in flag-to-flag broadcasting, the logos on a fire suit became its primary design focus. You don't really see it become formulaic, though, until the mid-1990s. Because around that time, the logos on the suit, and I'm talking about the smaller logos, were just sort of randomly placed. You'd have to have certain logos, but there really wasn't a specific formula to where they would be and why they would be there. Around the mid-1990s, this changed with the logos on the suits becoming very specifically placed for specific reasons. Now, one of the reasons for this is simple, because it was around this time that replica fire suit shirts and jackets became a popular piece of merchandise, which they still are to this day. The other reason is that these sponsors are paying money to appear on these suits, and they also want to be seen on television. So how do you go about this? Well, you develop a very specific logo setup, which was pretty much commonplace by the early 2000s, with all the patches in specific places for specific reasons. Sorry, I'm finding a little sore throat today. Okay, so this is a Frank Kimmel Menard's Pit Crew jacket from the 2012-13 ARCA seasons. This is the perfect example of logo placement, and what do I mean by that? Well, this is the patch setup is, and I don't want to call them patches, they're logos, but the logo placement is almost identical to his driver suit. Now, if Frank Kimmel were to be interviewed by Fox, they would zoom into his face and, well, let's look at the way the logo placement would be seen during an interview. Okay. Now, when I said that the logo placement became formulaic, this is what I mean. All the logos are in specific places so that they can be seen during television interviews. You have the Menards logo on the shoulder epaulettes and the collar. That's usually where the primary sponsor logos would be. The epaulettes can also be a place for the Goodyear logos, as is frequently seen. The logos on the chest are there. You have the Menards, Arca Menards logo, and several other logos, smaller patches, that would be clearly seen during an interview. And you also have the patches on the upper sleeves that are seen. Now, the patches at the ends of the sleeves are also critical because these are specifically designed to be seen by the in-car cameras. Now, in-car cameras have had kind of a weird history. The first ones, you look at the early ones from like the 79 Daytona 500, the driver isn't even the focus of it. It's in where the passenger seat would be, filming out the front window. Okay. But with the advent of better camera technology, you had several camera placements. You've got the rear bumper camera, ever popular. You've got the ubiquitous roof camera. In NASCAR, the front bumper cam has become very common. But there's always one camera that's inside. Actually, now there are two. There's one that's actually on the rear view mirror facing the driver. Then there's the one in the passenger seat area that can film out the rear window, the side window, the windshield, or facing the driver. This is an interesting one because, again, it's the design of the suits really didn't matter all that much. But with these new in-car cameras facing the driver, companies were quick to figure out that if you set the logo up so that it's sideways when the driver's arms are at his sides, when he's holding the wheel, the logo can be clearly seen. And on the upper sleeve, you can also see that the logos are in no position because they'll be seen normally. So when you have a camera like this, and this is a picture from Jimmy Johnson, I'm not sure when this was taken, you can clearly see that the logos on his sleeve and to a certain extent his legs are clearly visible. We'll get to the leg logos next week. Yeah, and I'm dealing with a sore throat, so I'm going to cut it short this week. But yeah, I'm Dave Firestone. Next week will be episode 11. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.